Good to go. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Yardley Western Stechford Ward Forum meeting. The purpose of today's meeting is to discuss the Brum Breathes funding that we have for the ward. And there's a number of projects that we want to put past you to see if we're happy to go ahead with them. And to see, if there's anything else that we can actually identify where if there's any money left over, or if the project that we're going to put in front of you can be redesigned elsewhere. Imran, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Are you okay to just give a brief insight into how the Brum Breeds funding actually works and what we're looking to spend on?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, if for those of you who aren't aware, the Brum Breeze funding is actually is part of the Birmingham's clean air strategy. Essentially, it's funding for all the wards. An allocation of funding, I should say, has been put aside for all the wards to implement highway improvement measures to assist improving the air quality across the whole of the city, really, and also supporting businesses and places such as schools to travel, including the staff as well, travel a bit more sustainably. And its measures just basically drop. There can be anything from drop crossings to cycleways, things of that nature, really, to try and encourage pedestrians to use that space a bit more. Yeah.
Thank you, Imran. Okay, I'll go through the projects one by one, and after each project, I'm happy to take any questions or thoughts on what we're planning to do. Okay, the first project that we're looking at is Francis Road in Stechford, where we're looking to have a pedestrian crossing with an island near to house number 48, which would enable the kids to cross over going to Stechford Primary School. And that the reason we've identified that as a main one of our key projects has been that the level of speeding on Francis Road has seen an increase over the last couple of years. And with this funding, right, if we can install a pedestrian crossing that will make it safer for children to get to school by having an island where they can stop and cross over, we believe that will make a big difference to the local neighborhood. And on top of that, it might encourage parents to actually walk to school knowing that we've put safety measures in place that will actually get their kids to school in a safer environment. So that is one of our key targets, is that Francis Road has to be having a pedestrian crossing. One, I believe that it will slow the traffic down, and especially around the school gates where we do see an increase of parents and children early morning and late afternoon. And if we can do something to make it safer for them, I believe, we'll have achieved one of our targets. And that project alone is going to cost us close to £12,000 to have that.
Yeah.
So how much funding do you get overall?
Well, it's actually the Brum Breeze is actually sorry, I should have stated this earlier. It's actually £20,000 per ward, I believe, and it's over 2-year period, and I think we're in the second year. So yeah, if I'm correct, that's
right. Because we had £20,000 last year, and we've had another £20,000 this year. So in total, we've got a budget of £40,000 that we need to be spending by March 2025. Okay. By the end of March 2025. So we've got a total amount of £40,000 to be spending, but that includes a cost of designing the project, to implement the project. Is that right, Imran?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, there's obviously our service has been redesigned through this crisis that the Birmingham City Council has gone through, and that means essentially, in terms of a local engineering service, we have to justify our service, and obviously we have to fund ourselves essentially, and we have to obviously charge a fee for our time. So that cost, within all of that cost, it's for the other scheme as well. I don't think you yet mentioned, which was a pedestrian crossing on Wash Lane and Bearton Road as well, which I'll you can sort of lead on to sort of talk a little more about. But the total costs includes the design and implementation of the schemes.
Imran, are you from the planning department?
No, sorry, I'm the local engineer for Birmingham City Council.
Okay, great. Thanks. Yeah. That's one thing.
Yeah. So essentially my role is I'm one of the engineers. We have a relatively small team. I cover the east area of Birmingham, so I cover a total of 10 wards, and Yardley, West and Stechford being one of them. And essentially I work closely with the councillors to address their sort of local concerns that their constituents have, and also assist them in spending their ward minor measures money, which unfortunately is ceased now, but other programs that do come to light so in the future, I'm always involved with the councillors to get their support for the schemes. And obviously the schemes are essentially derived from their requests as to what they want in terms of addressing their local constituents' concerns.
So just to clarify, I still have £40,000 to spend, or only 20,000?
Sorry, say that again.
We still have £40,000 to spend, or now only 20,000.
No, it's rolled. The money's rolled over essentially, okay, so we've got a total of 40,000 still. Yeah, so good. we were able to roll it over.
Good, thank you.
Clarify what this project will cost in Francis Road again. I thought you said 25,000.
No, sorry, Councillor. Do you want to?
No. I was going to say in total this evening we will be spending the full 40,000.
But that's not just in Francis Road.
Not just in Francis Road. That is going to be across our projects in total. The total cost of our projects this evening will be £40,000.
Yeah.
The project on Francis Road alone will be costing. It's approximate. It's not an accurate figure at the moment, but we're looking at £12,000 to spend on Francis Road.
Okay.
Right. Can I make a couple of comments about what you're suggesting?
Okay.
Is that really appropriate time now, or do you want to carry on?
No, carry on.
You're talking about the crossing being by number 48. And I'm not sure where you're going to put the island in, because there's no room for an island for people. And 48 Francis Road, which is about 2/3 of the way up, is not even at the top of the road. So I'm wondering where this island comes in, because there's no space to put an island and for people to go around the island to pass it. Doesn't make sense.
If you put it in the middle of the road, the island, there is not space for both of the cars to park, to both ways to drive.
And are you talking about lights? So you're talking about a pedestrian crossing with lights, or just a pedestrian crossing?
Imran, do you want to touch on that?
Well, when we looked at the site, if you recall, Councillor, we were sort of, it's pretty much adjacent to the school. There is a section of central hatching in the middle of the road, in and around that area, and you're right. Sorry, you're right that whilst there might not be enough space for an island, of course, whenever you've got a drop crossing, you're going to have to obviously omit a parking space at that location anyway to allow vehicles to pass. So if I'm not sure if you can envisage the location. I may be able to. I don't know if I can. Am I all right to share my screen?
Yeah.
Yes, Imran. Yes, you can. You can.
Okay. It's all right. I've got two screens on at the moment, so I'm going to have to disconnect the one because it might project a funny image. So bear with me. I'm just going to share my screen and help you just talk through the process. So just let me know when you can all see.
Yeah, got it.
My screen.
Yeah, we can see that.
Really got the markings. I don't remember these markings.
No,
Well,
we do have markings on that's something that you've done, presumably, the markings on the road.
Right. So, I mean, the extent of the width of the carriageway is essentially, I mean, it might vary, along the road slightly, but this is the sort of locality of the works that we're talking about at this sort of location. So the width of the carriageway is fairly consistent at this point throughout. And I think what we'd have to obviously do is look at essentially, we were looking at somewhere around about here. To obviously, we're mindful of the accesses as well. For residents will need to obviously be able to access egress their properties unrestricted. So we were sort of considering locations in and around here to sort of allow for a drop crossing. So we'd potentially look at relocating a sign and some guard railing and possibly a bin to facilitate that. But essentially, it's all part of the design process, and it is feasible. Having looked at it initially, so it's something that can be done. I
mean, I live on Francis Road, and I can tell you, a chicane I could understand, where people had to stop, and for the oncoming traffic that would slow things down. But I don't understand an island.
Yes, I can't get it.
Well, it's really, I mean, there's lots of locations. I mean, I'll just stop sharing my screen. I mean, that you can see that obviously the location. But just to explain, Carol, there are lots of locations whereby we do have Central Island. That sort of facilitates, and it provides a it is essentially a traffic calming feature. So what it does is highlight to motorists that there is a crossing there, but it also provides a bit of a safe location within the carriageway for pedestrians, not necessarily to wait. Well, I guess wait because they're protected by the keep left bollards on either side. So there's lots of locations throughout the city that have those crossings in and around residential areas as well as outside schools.
Sorry, Emma. You're talking about crossings. I can understand that. Lights, I can understand that. I can understand the chicane. But an island means that you allow traffic to go from your right-hand side first. There's no road left or right.
Sorry, so when I'm in an island, I don't mean a roundabout. Sorry.
Well, that's what we, when we talk about an island, that's what we.
Apologies. Yeah, well, in engineering terms, that's what we refer to them, because they are like a little island, but they're not a roundabout. It's not to do with the movement of traffic. The traffic will still be, as it is in terms of movements. No change to traffic movements.
Right.
Can I just say something as well about that, about the island idea? I think the photo that you showed, the road was very empty, yeah? And I know in front of the school they're not supposed to park, which is sometimes done, sometimes not. When I came back tonight, this evening, there were cars on both sides, and you had actually parked on both sides all the way along, maybe not just in front of the school, all the way up there. Right. And you had to park and find your empty spaces actually to pass each other already. That's what's happening. And if specifically if the mosques has services, that is even worse, yeah? So if there is an island there, I think the traffic, even if maybe in school it may be okay, but if it is not in school, the traffic would totally break down there. Maybe that's something that you want, then they would go around the other road, Albert Road. But already in the evening, as when you come out early, there is often not enough space for two cars to park straight through. You have to find the empty spaces.
Imran, would it be possible to share a diagram of an island of
Yeah.
Some
I'll
to-
share them. Bear with me. I'll just
I mean, if
so
it's
you
like
can all.
a thing in the middle of the road where, you know,
It's essentially these. I mean, this is a standard detail drawing for an island, and we've got various types. We've got 4 types, and you may have seen these in and around the city. But essentially, these are what they are. They're curb build outs, and there's a bit of tarmac or concrete infill. And this is what we typically install. So you've got you got your beacon there with your lights. You've got your keep left bollard there, and one on the opposite side. And there's also this sort of more pedestrian friendly type where you've got tactile paving in the middle and a bit of a waiting area for pedestrians. So you've got drop curbs on either side, transitioning from full height curb. And these are bullnose curbs which are consistent with what you see on vehicle access driveways. So where the curb is lowered, these curbs here obviously are going to be lowered as well on either side to allow mothers with pushchairs or wheelchair users to be able to cross with unrestricted. And obviously, this is a slight different variation to that on the right, which is a type 4. So that's what I mean by central island.
My view is still zebra crossing, yes. Central Island, it will just stop the traffic in Francis Road. Totally. Not that
I have a problem with the residents parking there because they totally ignore double yellow lines. I can't see that.
Well, they can't park across a pedestrian crossing because it's classed as an obstruction and they get ticketed straight away. So
no,
I don't know.
Sorry, that does not happen because double yellow lines is an obstruction and they should be ticketed. Doesn't happen. So
Right.
I think we have a major problem at prayer times. It is so congested, it's gridlocked, and down Francis Road is gridlocked too with cars coming up, cars trying to get through, parking on double yellow lines, parking all the way down across people's drives. I think we have to be realistic here. Yes, I think it's a wonderful idea, and that is the side entrance to the school. It's not the main entrance. The side entrance is sort of on the front, and yes, anything to assist the children. But I agree with you, sir. I cannot, much as it sounds a good idea, if it would slow the traffic down and would assist, I'd say yeah, go for it. But my honest feeling is that it won't make any difference. People still park. They'll park on pavements. They'll park all the way across it. I don't think it will make any difference. Pedestrian lights, yes, that would make a difference, I think. I mean, I'm all
that would be
slowing the traffic down.
But I think with the case of zebra crossing and pedestrian crossing, we're talking 100,000 probably plus.
Well, I mean, a zebra crossing is probably around about 40,000. Obviously, a pelican crossing, that's it wouldn't meet the criteria. There wouldn't be enough. And like you say, it's approximately 80k plus for a pelican crossing. That wouldn't even be considered here. I mean, obviously, we're working within the budget that we've got, and we have to try and do what we can. But we're open to alternative suggestions as well.
You were talking about a crossing. So when you're talking about a crossing, you're not talking about a zebra crossing or a proper crossing.
No, look, what I will say is we're talking about measures that we can employ with the budget that we have, and the budget that we have, unfortunately, isn't a lot. £40,000 might be a lot to me and you, but in the big scheme of things, when it comes to highway works, it doesn't get you a lot, unfortunately. That's just the reality of the sort of money it takes to construct highway improvement schemes. So we don't have a lot of money, and the councillor wishes to try and spread that money across the ward, which makes sense. You want to try and do a little bit where you can. So it's just under £12,000, those sorts of measures to take place. I mean, obviously, if we're talking you know, let's just say we had a pot of money that we could install a zebra crossing, and we had, let's just say 50,000-60,000, that would cause further complications, because we would need to site that zebra crossing in a location where it's going to meet the criteria for the footfall, which again I don't think it is here really, personally. But I guess, you know, there are other locations, you know, where zebra crossings have been employed outside schools, but they're slightly busier areas, more built up. They got pedestrian footfall, you know, leading to shops in and around the surrounding areas as well, and also those zebra crossings are on busier roads, let's say, as opposed to a residential road such as this. And I'm not saying it's not busy, and I'm sure it is busy, but it's only going to be busy at various times of the day.
I mean, when you said a crossing, immediately I thought you meant a pedestrian crossing. And when you said an island, I thought you meant a round island. So
sorry, you know, look, I apologise. I'll make sure I'm a little bit clearer in terms of the terminology I'm using. So yeah, going forward, I mean, like I said, it is a pedestrian crossing facility. Yes, and that's exactly what it is. But it's the lowest form, I would say, to sort of try and improve pedestrian crossing movements, and encourage pedestrians to feel a little bit safer when crossing the road, you know, as well, you know.
I mean,
how do you know this, the people don't feel safe? Did
you
do a consultation, or did?
Well, it's going off what councillor said. So if I can put that back to you, councillor. I mean, obviously, I'm only going.
No, that's fine. So we've had a bit of a consultation with parents of Stechford Primary, and they raised the concerns of not feeling safe due to the speeding of the cars, especially on Richmond Road, Francis Road. So all local, within that local area of the school. So we've decided that how do we spend the money that we have, and we have to spend it before the end of March, and we have to spend it across the ward. So I can't physically spend the full £40,000 on one project. I have to justify 3 or 4 projects across the ward to say this is where we believe, or residents are asking that we spend the money here, that we reduce the traffic in the area, make it safer for the residents of Stechford, Yardley, to get to the schools, get to the shops. And that's where we've identified we could have done the measures on Richmond Road, or we could have done it on Francis Road.
I mean, what about the parents that actually have to cross over Francis Road? So they're walking up Richmond Road and they're crossing over Francis Road, and there's cars parked all around the double yellow lines. I would have thought that you know, that was more serious.
The corner bit is much more serious. Yeah,
because when there's cars parked, you can't see where they're coming. You can't see where they're coming from. So that is a really bad area up there. And there's double yellow lines all the way around, but they're totally ignored. So anyone pushing a pushchair and with young children, they have to negotiate and just hope that something's not going to go swinging around the corner and knock them over. I mean, I mean, I'm all for anything to slow the traffic down on Francis Road. I think that the Richmond Road, Francis Road, I mean, I don't know what you think, Jutta.
I agree totally with that, because the fast traffic is, Richmond Road can't be fast normally because there is too much cars parked there, no?
So with Richmond Road, what happens with Richmond Road, once they come off the roundabout and they see the lights on green, they actually
drive very fast.
They try to beat the lights by driving before the lights turn red. So we do have an issue of speeding when it's possible, obviously when there's less cars around there, but we have to identify. I personally believe that Francis Road has an issue of speeding. The residents that we've spoken to around Francis Road have mentioned the speeding, even though we've got speed cushions already in the road, which were put in many years ago. It's still an issue. It's still an issue up there, and by putting this island in, I believe, you know, we're putting an extra measure in. that will actually, it'll slow it down. And if it slows it down near to the school, I think, we've actually achieved what we want by making it safer.
Yeah.
And the issue of people parking on yellow lines or on the school crossing, that's an issue for enforcement officers, which we can get them to come out to ticket. But then it's a case of they'll come out, ticket the cars, but then as soon as their backs are turned, back to square one again.
Yeah, I mean, just to sort of jump in on the back of what you just said there, Councillor. If I understand a little bit more about it, because we briefly talked about these measures and we had a quick look, and I kind of, gave you some indicative costs as to what they would be. But obviously, as part of the design process, this is where we would knuckle down and actually look at what would really work best here. And as you've just extended on what the issues in terms of what the local issues are there, I think we could potentially install some type 1 bollards, little islands, and sorry, type 2 islands, and basically what that does is create pinch points along the road. I mean, we've already got speed cushions there, but I think at the sections on either side of the school keep clears, we could potentially put one of those just outside the school, just to actually reduce this, the speed of vehicles in either direction at that point. And we could also put we could just remove some of the guard railing and put a pedestrian crossing facility in without a central island. But we could just potentially have type 2 islands on either side of the school, really, just to really kind of beef up the traffic calming features at that location. If that's the concern, and if you see that working, that's just a possibility really that we could potentially look at for the same amount of money.
I can't visualize what you just.
Okay, sorry. So I'm just going to share my screen again, so you can see, and just to help you visualize. So these are type 2 islands, and you will have seen these in and around. There's actually some on Garrison Lane. I'm just going to try and bring up a image of what they look like.
That helps, yes. Thank you.
Just to show you, and these are quite effective actually in slowing down traffic where there are instances of speeding, and they do work quite well. As I said, I've installed a few in and around the city, and the complaints have died down. So I'm just gonna see if I can get an image of where we've installed some. I don't think the vehicle maps is updated. Yeah, let's think of another location. So if you just want to carry on, I'll see if I can find some.
In addition to that, I think there should be some traffic calming on Richmond Road.
Right. We understand, but the issue it comes down to the fact that we only have this 40,000.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The issue that is the biggest issue is the funding that we have. It's only 40,000. We don't have any ward minor measures which we had in the past where we used to get £10,000 per year to do ward improvements. So we're doing double yellow lines on the bottom of Francis and Morden. That came out to last year's £10,000, but this year we've not had that funding. They've stopped that funding.
Mm-hmm.
And the only bit of money that we do have is the Brum Breathes, which is from the clean air zone.
Okay, so is clean air zone really the issue?
And this is where we have to, we have to spend it. And because we've got no other pots of money, we have to spend it small pots across the ward just to, try to tackle 3 or 4 different issues in the ward.
Sorry, I'm just going to quickly show you some on Garrison Lane. It's actually you'll see it from an aerial view, which you'll be able to see. So essentially, these are what those islands look like from an aerial point of view. So you'll have a bollard on either side, and it just basically creates a pinch point in either direction. So you can see the lane markings have been adjusted to deflect traffic away from the curb island, and that essentially what that does is create a pinch point and force vehicles to slow down if they are speeding. So that's how that works.
How wide is the island?
Well, the island is it's typically 1.5 meters wide.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, we can adjust the width to suit the width of the carriageway slightly, but we do stick to our standard details because they've been approved. They've gone through a process of being approved and being safe to implement on the highway. So
that road is obviously much wider than the Francis Road.
What, that one there?
Yeah.
No, well, we haven't designed it for Francis Road yet, obviously, but yeah, no, that's you'd be surprised. I think they're fairly consistent throughout the city. To be honest with you, there might be a slight decrease or increase to suit the location and the width of the carriageway, but generally we do stick very, very closely to the widths, the details on our standard detail drawings.
And do we have we installed a pedestrian crossing where we can show
a pedestrian crossing? Yeah, there's been various ones that I've installed, but again, there's lots throughout the city. I'm just trying to think of a location. It's just bear with me.
Have you spoken to the residents that this is going to affect? Because at times there is absolutely no space anywhere all down the road. So those people that would normally park on the road, have you spoken to them? Do they know?
Not just yet, because it's at the initial stages. So it's not something. Bear with me. It's not something that we've done as of yet, because obviously nothing's come to light. But obviously we do, as part of any scheme, consult residents with regards to any proposals on the highway.
I can really see an advantage for the mothers with children and pushchairs, because if you're in the middle of the road and something comes screaming down at you, yeah, obviously that's going to be much better. As far as traffic calming, I'm not quite sure whether that would work, because they don't take any notice of the the road, the speed bumps. They just go in between them, and in any case you have to go in between, because there's so many cars parked on the right and the left. You don't have any choice but to go down the middle, and two cars can't cross then, so you have to try and maneuver and find a space so that the oncoming traffic can come through, or vice versa. Yeah, I mean, for the mothers and the children, I think it's a good idea. I still think I agree with you that the junction of Francis Road and Richmond Road is really bad.
Yeah, that's
turning in there and parking all around the double yellow lines. And I hear what you say about, oh yeah, well, it's an offence for them to park over zigzags and double yellow lines, but unless you have someone there that's on a regular basis that's going to ticket them, then you're just going to get the same thing. People will park where they like.
What about a traffic island at that junction and some bollards along the corners? Then people can cross there.
On
Richmond Road,
the Richmond Road junction, yeah. I mean, there's a possibility. There's a possibility that we may be able to do that. Again, it's just having these discussions with yourselves, really, and obviously the councillor, to see what it is exactly that we spend this money on. Obviously, again, costing that up. Bollards, there are maintenance implications to having bollards on the highway, so that's something that we have to be mindful of, because obviously it's all good and well us installing something, but obviously we need to make sure it's maintained, because if it ever gets hit, buy a vehicle in the future. Obviously, we need to set aside some money as part of the commuted sum for our maintenance contractor to be able to maintain those items of street furniture.
Yeah.
So the monies for that is taken into account with this as well. So obviously, the more bollards we have, because that's quite a wide junction, isn't it?
It's the same width Francis Road is. It's not wider. It's just
no, at the junction itself, it's quite wide. It's a wide bow mouth, and it's probably I don't know what the radius is, but it's a lot wider. I mean, what the radius in terms of protecting that radius from protecting that junction from vehicles parking on the footway, half on, half off. You're going to need a series of bollards, and I can easily see that wiping out potentially half of that budget. So you'd only really you'd be lucky to get 2 schemes throughout the whole of your ward, councillor. So I'd just be mindful of that. I mean, we could install drop crossing to assist pedestrian movements at that junction, as well as put bollards there to stop vehicles from parking on the junction. But we could only employ those on the footway. If they wanted to park on the double yellow lines against the curb, then we couldn't actually physically restrict that. It would just, obviously the bollards would only protect the footway area, and that's essentially falling in line with the criteria of Brum Breathes.
Okay, I don't know how we can proceed with this, because
would the crossing, would that crossing not be double curbed?
When you say the crossing, what do you mean?
The original crossing, pedestrian crossing that we were talking about first, would that not be like double curb, so it would prevent cars from actually parking on the crossing?
No. No, because the issue that we'd have there is with for the curb to be a double curb, we'd have to raise the footway, otherwise it'd be a tripping hazard, and that again, raising the footway, it'd be too much of a gradient in terms of the fall to the back of the footway. It just wouldn't be right, because normally, typically, what you tend to find in terms of the crossfall that we have on all of our pavements, it falls towards the carriageway. So whenever there's rainwater, it falls towards the carriageway and then down into the drainage channel along the curbs and into the gullies, into the surface water drainage system. If we had a double curb system at that the drop crossing location, it'd only raise up the footway, and obviously it'd be going in the opposite direction, and it'd just be a nightmare in terms of levels. It's something that would be possible, to be honest with you, councillor.
You couldn't do it in any case, because there's houses there and they will need to pull onto the drive. So you can't stop people pulling onto their drives, can you?
Yeah. No, well, the double curbs are typically only installed where there are full height curbs, and they're only typically installed in to protect grass verges, really. It's very rare you'll find that a double curb alongside a footway, where there is a pavement.
No idea what a double curb is.
Where we're installing the crossing anyway, it's not causing an obstruction to
the residents. No,
it's not.
No, it's
we've
not.
Identified that there's no drop curb, so there's no driveways, so we're not causing a obstruction to any household up there.
Yeah, I think what we do need to do, though, is come to a decision collectively as to what we want to do with, or what you want to do with the Brum Breathes money, I should say, councillor. And I'm just, as I said to you previously, we're just mindful of the time, because you know what it's like. It takes quite a long time to go through the approvals process, governance process, and obviously get these schemes implemented out and site. So between now and March next year, we're just under a year away, but still time really does move fairly quickly, and we have lots of other works that we do as a local engineering team that we're having to juggle. So it is just something that I think we do need to move fairly quickly with, to make sure that we spend all of that money, otherwise it just disappears. And also that as I said to you before, anybody is welcome to apply for the funding for Brum Breathes, such as community organisations. So I think the quicker you are in terms of applying for the funding, the quicker you are and more likely you are going to be able to secure the funding for the ward.
Can I just say something? I mean, I only heard about this meeting yesterday. I was lucky I had time, and this is very technical and very decisions that is connected with funding, timescales, and so on. For us to comment on that is really, really difficult because we can tell you our gut feeling that it doesn't work in front of the school because that's how it is, but really consult it to be able to make a decision, I don't really feel, And what I wanted to suggest is maybe we give you some photos of what it is like in a morning or in an evening with all the cars there, for example. And that is, of course, people race on the road sometimes, but and we haven't got any idea about any other options. I don't know what else could be there. And I mean, and then of course all your funding and costs that arise out of that. No idea how to do that, how to judge that. So I don't know. Maybe we can find a better way of doing that. And
see, the issue we have, we can look at alternatives, but then that would mean taking it away from Francis Road. Potentially, we could look at Richmond Road, or we could go to the other part of the ward. And I believe that the way we've identified 3 or 4 projects, we're actually being fair to the ward, that we're trying to cater for the whole of the ward and not specifically keeping the funding one side of the ward. And if we had different pots of money which we could tap into, we would potentially, we could be doing other stuff in the area. Because we're very limited to what we have this time, that is why we're we're trying to push that idea that, we need to be spending it.
Yes.
And I mean, what I would say, in addition to what the council is saying there, I mean, this is just one source of funding that we have, and I think, like Councillor Baz was saying, we do need to obviously try and utilise the funding that we have access to, and I think it's great if we can actually do that. But don't forget, there are other programs that I think we've got a few programs that are going to be signed off hopefully on the 10th at full council by the cabinet members, and one of which is the Healthy Safer Streets program, but that's going to be, that's been rebranded by the new cabinet member for transport, so that's been changed now. It's actually gives councillors, I believe, from my understanding, it gives councillors more power to implement schemes to address local issues for their for their constituents.
Yeah, so I don't know how to proceed with this. I have experience with consultations which we undertook for the council and lots of other organizations for the last 30 years, and I don't know how you so it is possible to find out quite detailed what people want and how they want it.
You say the time is not there, so we've got to make a decision.
Because basically what's happened, the reason why we're trying to push it is that we've had over a year, because this scheme came into place last year, and we had, as a residents group, we had an opportunity to apply for it and whatnot. But what we found was that no group was forthcoming. So potentially we risk the chance of losing this money, because we've had pots of money previously linked to the Commonwealth Games, that we had to allocate to Yardley East, because we could have spent our full allocation, because that was all community led, and we didn't get the community support that we were looking for. So I'm being mindful that we've got the money, and I don't want to see my money go elsewhere.
So I hear what you're saying,
for us, for me, it's a golden opportunity to spend this money in the ward. And while talking to Imran earlier, I believe I'm probably one of the councillors that's more advanced in getting our projects out there at the moment. So a lot of councillors haven't actually even got to this process yet of asking where they want to spend their money.
Yeah. So what can we do? Can we?
But it's not when we're agreeing something, it's not, you're still going to have a possibility of, when we do consultation, you'll still have a chance to put your concerns in. There's still possibility of changing it as well, near the time. But mindful of that, we're into the second year of it, and this is from start to finish, we're talking at least, I would say, 6 months before, consultation, before the contractors are approved and all of that. We're talking at least 6 months from now. And
I was wondering if Imran could put together a paper about 1, 2, 3 different options with pictures and plans and things like that, that you can take, I don't know, to us, and we could take to other people and then get their feedback. That's more people on Francis Road, no? So that would be great. I don't know if you can do that, if you have the time for that. But I don't know what alternatives there are anyway. I mean, we had to discuss 2 now, or maybe 3 with, and some were not feasible, and yeah.
But it's like Imran said earlier, 40,000 sounds a lot of money, and it is a lot of money to me and you. But when we're getting council to do the work for us, highways, that £40,000 soon vanishes.
Yeah, right? Sorry, I dropped off there. I had an internet connection issue. So I mean, yeah, it is a lot of money, but in reality, it's not, because the physical works, for one, they cost quite a bit of money to get, to achieve what we want to do with that money. And I give you an example: installing a concrete bollard. At one point through the pandemic, the prices, typically they were around about £100 for one. They went up to about 500. After the pandemic, everything just skyrocketed, and these were the sort of figures that we were sort of having to deal with. So what we could previously do, we're having to rethink slightly a little bit outside of the box to try and achieve what it is, what we wanted to with the money that we had. So I mean, the prices have stabilized a little bit, but still, I think we have to it's important to note that we have to set aside a bit of money out of that for the commuted sum for future maintenance. So we don't really get a lot, unfortunately, for that amount of money.
Yeah, maybe you can put up 2, 3 ideas of what you can get for the money, and then we can talk again.
Yeah, well, as I said, a pedestrian crossing is roughly around about £1,500 for a side, so £3,000 for a pair. So that gives you an idea of what how much it costs for that. A central island, that roughly costs, as you've seen in the standard details, that costs roughly about £8,000. Obviously, for the contractors, they have to work on the highway, they have to employ traffic management and that's some expensive equipment. They have to attain the necessary permissions to work on the highway. All of those sorts of costs are involved in the contractor quoting that price. It seems an awful lot of money, but essentially, that's what they cost.
So can you kind of come up with 3 different? You could do this or this or this. That would cost about that much. Is that any better? Something like that, and then have a little drawing of it or whatever. Do cut and paste into kind of whatever, and then we can say, yeah, that makes sense. Or could you, because at the moment we are just talking.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. I mean, I've said this to a couple of the other councillors who have asked me to input my time into developing schemes for them. Essentially, that's what you're asking me to do.
Yeah.
And as sorry as I am, I can't invest that time without a budget code, I'm afraid. So this is actually, you know, you've not even, Councillor Baz hasn't even actually acquired the money yet. He's actually got to submit an application form to the Brum Breathes team and ask them for, you know, for their permission to, you know, for them to grant the money over to Councillor Baz for him to implement those measures. And once he's got that approval and that funding allocated, then obviously a code would be generated and I could charge my time to that code, and then I could, you know, work on that that project. But unfortunately, I can't do that. I'm at my time now. I'm extending out of courtesy for Councillor Baba Baz now.
Okay, so how can we find out what is possible? Is there anything we can read or look at, or what is possible? Similar schemes? Where can we find that?
I mean that information is really kind of, you know, you got live examples of outside various schools and what they've implemented, and obviously the schools have had certain measures implemented on the highway as part of the Safer Routes to School program. A lot of schools have you know, signed up to mode shift stars, which is again part of the clean air strategy that the city
what
council
was the name
had.
of that?
Safer Routes to School, and that you know, that where each school signs up to mode shift stars, and that's an online tool that the school have access to, and you know, there's funding through that. But I believe that program's coming to a halt if it's not already. There's a separate team that deal with that. And essentially what that is the school actually commit to developing a travel plan, and then they get back in touch with the travel demand team, and they actually release some money to look at various highway improvement measures that can be employed to assist the school with their you know, travel plan, which looks at obviously more sustainable means of transport for their parents and, you know, for the parents and children that attend that school.
Okay.
Is it feasible? I mean, I have no idea. If you want to do that small island by the school, would it be feasible to have enough money maybe to put a couple of bollards on the junction of Francis and Richmond Road?
I think we need to be realistic whenever we employ measures on the highway, Carol. We need to ensure that they're not a half-hearted approach. So I think just slapping a couple bollards here and there, we do have a policy of trying to declutter the city in terms of the street furniture. There are locations where there are bollards that have been littered to, you know, protect footways, and whilst they serve their purpose, it does kind of go against that policy that we have in place that tries to, you know, reduce the clutter on the highway where there's a need. Sorry.
The reason I'm saying any sort of to keep cars away from the corner, so when they're parking all the way around, not only on the road under the yellow line, but all the way around the corner on the pavement, anyone walking down there, you know, you could have a car that's indicating to turn left, but you wouldn't see it because of all the cars parked there. So,
yeah,
you know, that is a real, I mean, I've had an accident up there myself, so, you know, I know what it's like. In fact, there's been 2 or 3 really quite, you know, nasty accidents up there with people turning in and not seeing and not being able to pass, so they've, you know, scraped cars and whatever. And I think there was quite a serious accident, sort of, you know, just a bit further back from there towards the lights a couple of weeks ago. But I'm just thinking, if we're looking at a safety thing, then I although much as I would like to stop the traffic, you know,
I think yeah, no, I completely hear what you're saying. I completely hear what you're saying, Carol, and understand what you're saying, but we do have to be careful about the criteria, and you know, in terms of Councillor Baba Baz submitting a proposal being put forward to the Brum Breathes team, it needs to ensure that this isn't a safety scheme to that looks at reducing accidents for motorists. It's the Brum Breathes criteria is essentially looking to promote pedestrians walking in and around the area and encouraging sustainable means of transport, cycleways and these sorts of things. So I don't think we can try to, I don't know if that would go through the panel approving the funding.
The other funding comes out when you said there's more funding for safer schools. Maybe that's something you could let us know about and we can have a look at that.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, because the Richmond Junction with Richmond Road Junction with Francis Road is probably outside the extent of the school, but that's not to say that that Safer Routes to School program couldn't pick that up. It's just how they want to try and address their concerns at the school. But I think that the issues that you're identifying they're more to do with the road safety outside of at any time of the day, really. Is that correct?
Well, there is a nursery on that corner. So there's a nursery, a school and two schools just a bit further up the road. So you've got
that is a private nursery though, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, to a private nursery.
Yeah. So, and I don't know where their access is, to be honest with you. I don't know if it's on the Francis Road or Richmond Road.
On Richmond Road.
Is it what Francis Road? Is it?
Richmond Road.
Oh, sorry, Rich.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Right. Okay.
But again, without knowing the criteria, we wouldn't know how we would be spending that money, right? So until that actually comes out.
Yeah. Well, I think we could potentially employ a pedestrian crossing facility at the junction, and what we could do is, and this tends to work quite well, because there's no real formal crossing point at that junction. What we could do is look to install a pedestrian crossing at that junction and a central island at the junction as well, which is not necessarily, it would be a bespoke island, and it had tactile paving, so it would create a pinch point at that junction for vehicles. So you'd find that vehicles would have to probably slow down a little bit for when they're traveling up Richmond Road away from the traffic lights, and then turn left, because I would imagine that that's almost like a racetrack for them. They want to just take that corner quite quickly. So I think we could potentially install a drop crossing facility there, but we just got to look at the road layout there in a little bit more detail, see where the drainage the gullies are, because obviously we want to install it close to the junction but not on the junction, just to make it safe for pedestrians to cross, because we don't really have crossing points ideally on I mean obviously it's a balance between the pedestrian desire line as well as obviously a suitable location. Sorry, Simon, do you want to speak? You got your hand up.
Hello everybody.
Hiya.
So I'm just a normal resident here. I just wanted to know, like, obviously, like the other lady said, the problem at the moment is on the Richmond Road, which is really, really worse. The traffic is there worse. So instead of thinking a zebra crossing, why we are not thinking about the traffic lights? If we get the traffic lights on the Francis Road, so it could give the access from the traffic from Richmond Road side. So that's why I'm just like, because at the moment it's all three schools, like Blexley School, the Stechford School, and the Corpus Christi School. They all comes in between the Richmond Road, Francis Road, Albert Roads, and Letenter Roads. All these 3-4 roads are worse in the mornings and the school times. So I personally say, are we only thinking about the Francis Road, or is there any chance we could think rest of the roads like Albert Road or Letenter Road? Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask.
Councillor, do you want to answer that, or shall I?
No, you go on.
I think what we, as I said before, I think we're mindful of the budget that we have for with Brum Breathes, allocation of funding that's available. Obviously, we've still got to apply for it, so there's no certainty that we'll get it. So that needs to be made clear. But also, I think what you've described there, Simon, is it's more really a local safety strategy scheme that looks at addressing the roads in and around this collected area where you've got this collected school. Sorry, so it's really kind of not really in line with the sort of funding, the criteria for the funding for the Brum Breathes projects, and it probably most likely fall outside the budget for that. And as I said, we'd need to look at sort of accident data. We previously used to have a local safety scheme program where we would identify locations on the number of on collisions and the severity as well, and also the type of casualty. But obviously that has now ceased, that program, unfortunately. But there are other programs that have yet to be signed off. When they are signed off, I'll be able to have a conversation with Councillor Baba-Baz about those programs and how we could potentially look at tackling areas of concerns within his respective ward as part of a different program.
There's a different.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay.
Can I jump in there, councillors and
Go on,
residents? Councillor Baz, at the start, you mentioned that you had a number of other ideas that you had or suggestions. Do you want to give us details of those as well, just so that people know and residents know, that there are other areas that you might want to consider? And I suppose if you list them, people can then sort of take the ideas away and have a think about those suggestions, possibly.
Okay, the second project was on Wash Lane, just before Bearton Road, and it was a similar scheme up there where we were looking to install a pedestrian crossing, basically to make it safer for the children of Starbank School and Oasis Academy, Hubmore, because it's a main road. We were similar concerns up there that if we can install measures in place where we can encourage parents and children to walk to school, one will cause less congestion up there, because the roads are pretty narrow up there as well. And a lot of complaints were that early morning, school time, the traffic up there is a bit of a nightmare up there, and especially as everybody's trying to get to that school, either because we've got two schools very close together, Starbank and Oasis Academy. So if we can put measures in place where we can encourage parents and children alike to walk to school. So we've identified a spot on Wash Lane just before Bearton Road Junction where we could put an island in, and that would cater for both the schools. So one project would hopefully, make it safer for the children of Starbank and Oasis. Because last year we did some work on the Millhouse Road, which is the other side of Starbank, and we installed a couple of crossings there. And so we've kind of done some work on the other side of Starbank, but we're looking at the more Wash Lane side now, so we can do something here that will, make it safer for the children. And it's another one that I believe that, we've got money that we can, it needs to be spent, and it's more in the Yardley half of the ward. So we're kind of trying to cater for the whole of the ward, right? So we're looking at Stechford and Yardley, and obviously we can't do a big project, because if you do one big project, it just wipes out the budget. But if we do 2 or 3 small schemes across the ward, we're trying to cater for everybody. So that is the second scheme.
Yeah.
And we've got a hand up. Naira, you want to come in? Naira? No. And Imran, do we have sketch of the road, how where we're looking to have that?
Yeah, I can just share my screen. I'll just show that. So essentially, it's just give me a shout when you can see my screen.
Yeah, I can see that.
So can you see it? So here's Beaton Road. You can see this is essentially a gateway in terms of signage. So you've got a gateway at this entrance of Beaton Road leading to Starbanks, and you see Oasis Academy is further down the road here, isn't it? So we were thinking to obviously assist pedestrians. There's already a pedestrian crossing facility here, and we have imprint asphalt finish here in terms of the carriageway, which is coloured red, to act almost like an anti-skid surface area, and we got slow on either side. And this was a scheme that we implemented a traffic calming measures, didn't we, Councillor? A couple of years ago, or a few years ago, and you can see the speed cushions there. And I've had no complaints since they've gone in. I mean, you're always going to get people parking on double red lines, double yellow lines, speeding over speed cushions, but this makes it a lot more uncomfortable for them to be able to speed over there, over the cushions, and obviously risk damaging their vehicles. So they are effective. They do work. They certainly have reduced the number of complaints along there. So the pedestrian crossing facility that we were thinking about installing was in and around this location, just here. I mean, obviously you can see that there's a parking occurring on that side of the carriageway, but what we would do is look at installing some kind of physical restraints to prevent vehicles from parking on either side there, and remove this lining there and terminate it on either side. So we'd have some kind of physical build out here in the carriageway to reduce the crossing width at this location, and have a drop crossing on the other side. So it would be not necessarily an island in the middle, because it would be fairly tight to allow movements of, for the vehicles to pass. So that was our proposed measure at this location. So we'd have a reduction, if you like, of the carriageway, because we'd be removing that area parking on either side of excuse me, on either side of the pedestrian crossing. So the pedestrians effectively would be walking and waiting up to about this point here to cross, so reducing the width to cross, width of the carriageway to cross. So that was the proposal at that location. Yeah, just about here. All right, with tactile paving as well, of course, and it's a suitable location. We've got cushions on either side of this junction, actually, as you can see, and with slow road markings as well to assist in terms of highlighting motorists that there is a junction ahead, as well as signage.
And, all right. And estimated cost of that project was £11,000. So again, you can see like how quick the money is actually running out. Yeah. So again, the physical work was costing that region, and obviously we've got to allow for my fee, times being spent, and also the maintenance costs for the commuted sum for the street furniture items, which are going to be the keep left bollards or bollards. Yeah. Naira, I believe you were on mute when you were trying to speak earlier. If you want to unmute yourself. You may be away from a desk, possibly. Okay, so literally that was our second proposal for this, how to spend our money. And again, it's we're open to comments, but again, we have to be mindful of the time frame because it's.
We're going to hear when you got the money. How long will that take? If you say you haven't got it, we might be talking hypothetically here.
No, it's a case of we won't. I've actually had the green light from Brum Breathes to say that the projects that we're trying to implement they do meet the criteria. All they wanted from us this evening was the green light to say that, yes, we've done the consultation. Well, we've spoken to residents because they had to go through the ward meeting, which is what we're doing this evening. And then once we've got that green light, we can, start the process of going back to Brum Breathes to say that we've followed the step of having a ward meeting, then we can get consultation out to residents and we can start the process.
Okay.
So that is where we are, and it's literally this way. Brum Breathes are actually just waiting on us to get back to them now to say that we've had this meeting, we've discussed it.
If you have the meeting, and if it's possible, then like you were saying, to move the island or whatever close to the junction to slow the traffic there rather than further down the road.
There's a possibility that we could do that again. We need to put that through the Brum Breathes panel again, approving the funding, of course, because that's a slight alteration. It will be a very small one, but essentially, I think that criteria would be very similar, and I think we could just argue that's just obviously facilitate the movements for pedestrians, traveling to the school in and around that area as well, and also pedestrian movements for residents walking along Richmond Road.
Yeah, I think that would be, I'd be happy with that. I think we do need to.
Yeah, that's a possibility. Councillor, I mean, as Carol's.
No, we can, there is, we can, we've got a bit of movement to, look at changing it if we need to. But obviously we'd have to still be within our budget. So depending on how much it would cost extra and all of that. So we just have to be mindful of the cost really. But if it means that residents want it further up the road, more near to the junction, then we're all for doing that.
Yeah.
But what I don't want to be doing is taking it away from that part of the ward. But then, if we come to a point where we can't agree to it and we'll start to look elsewhere where we can implement another idea, it might be that we go onto Littleton Road, for example, or more towards Yardley. And that is something that we don't really want to be doing. So that was our second project. With the Yardley one, I believe that it's pretty straightforward, that we're happy with the location. We're happy with what we want to do up there because it's going to benefit two schools. It's not just for Starbank School, it's also Oasis Academy. So both schools will actually benefit from that.
Okay.
And
what is the third project?
And the third project that we've got is to install a cycle rack on the corner of Richmond Road and Bosley Green East, which would hopefully reduce the parking issues that we see on a Friday during Friday prayers. Because at the moment, I'm sure Carol and Judy, you're both aware of the issues that we get on a Friday.
Yes.
With the parking that's linked to the mosque. So what we've decided, that part of the criteria, it meets the criteria that if we put a cycle rack near to the corner or on the corner, it literally gives the worshippers an opportunity to say that they can actually cycle to the place of worship instead of having to bring their cars. And that is our third project, is to have a cycle rack I believe it's a double. Is it a double one? Wasn't it that we?
Well, it's in initial stages at the moment, Councillor. So we don't really know which one just yet, because it's not something that we have on our sort of items of street furniture in terms of off the shelf. We don't have those sorts of multiple cycle racks. So it would be a bespoke one that we'd have to sort of source from a manufacturer, and look. It might even be 2 or 3, and we look to install them on the footway to deter vehicles parking on the footway, to protect those pedestrian areas from motorists parking at prayer times. So that, yeah, and that would be in the region of around about several £1,000s, as give or take. There are a few questions that have been put towards the meeting as well. So I'll let you finish, and then we can talk about those questions that have been put.
Okay, now literally with this cycle rack, the thinking behind it was that, one, we give the worshippers alternative source of travel to the place, to the mosque, and also to combat the parking that goes on the corner. So if we were to put cycle racks there, that would take away that space where people would park.
Yeah.
So that was the thinking behind it. So we were basically, by putting one measure in place, we would actually put solving 2 issues there.
Yeah.
One, take away the cars and give people the alternative of cycling there.
Which depends on how far away they live, isn't it? So if the people live locally or relatively locally, they will cycle.
One bit, because we've been obviously with the concerns of the residents, we've been speaking to the mosque about the parking issues that occur mainly on a Friday afternoon. And one of the issues that they raised was that if there was to be a cycle rack, maybe it would encourage them to actually ride to the mosque, which does happen at the mosque where there is that facility.
Yeah.
It needs some support from the mosque to
at the moment
advertise that and make sure that people do that instead of using their car, isn't it? Or suggesting that they should do that instead of using their car.
The mosque have been very supportive over the last few months, where they have put measures in place, and we have seen a small reduction in people parking inconsiderable, but it's still a work in progress. So where the mosque have been out to knocking on people's doors, giving them contact numbers is for somebody who they want to contact if there is a car causing obstruction, and so they are trying to engage with the community, knowing full well that there is an issue with parking, and they have security outside on the gates as well during Friday prayer times as well, just to move traffic on. But it's one of them work in progress. I would say that we're giving them an alternative now to say that if we were to do this, we will only know once we put that in place that will anybody actually use it or not.
It certainly gives them an alternative, doesn't it, Councillor? And like I said, when they're finding it more and more, increasingly difficult to find a parking space, and they're going to realise, obviously, it's going to be easier for them to just cycle there, and they're going to get a spot virtually outside, and it's it's a healthier, more sustainable way of getting there, and potentially even quicker. Because like Judah was saying, that this is it's only really going to work for those residents who are attending the mosque locally, and I think the majority of them are local, aren't they, Councillor? I think would you agree?
Majority, I would say about 70% of the congregation are from within the local area. There's only about 30% that actually travel from a few miles away. But even if that facility was there, we would actually encourage them to do it. And then I'm sure the mosque would actually make a bit of noise about it to say that, look, we've got this, please use it.
Right. Right, I'm just going to go on to some of the questions because I am mindful of the time because
Okay.
we've gone over slightly. Naya has asked when do we plan to carry out these works? Well, within the financial year, I would say we don't have, obviously we're still in the process of getting approvals for the funding, so the application is yet to be submitted by Councillor Boba Baz and obviously the Brum Breathes team approve his application and obviously release the funding. So yeah, so within this financial year, I can't at this point in time give any kind of indicative time frame other than that. It needs to be spent, you know, before March essentially, otherwise the money's just going to get lost. The second question is from Simon Hussein, where she asks the way looking at it, I really think it would work better in Richmond Road instead of Francis Road. It will be safer for all around the people for the people all around, I guess. So again, it's what Carol and Jonah have alluded to. Maybe we do consider you know, looking at measures at the Francis Road, Richmond Road junction, as opposed to directly outside the school. That may benefit the community councillor on a wider sort of approach as opposed to just the school.
You know, we're happy, you know,
Yeah.
with that, we're happy to look at that if it means that more of the community benefit from it. And, you know, we're all for safety in the area,
Yeah.
and we'll look at that. So I'm
And don't
sure
forget
between myself and just
sorry, there's Corpus Christi primary school as well. So not just, so you've got two big schools.
Yeah.
I know the nursery on the corner is private, but then you've got the nursery for the first school, and then you've got Corpus Christi just over the road. So you
Yeah.
know,
It's quite a busy area, isn't it?
Having it closer to Richmond Road would serve more people and more
Okay.
kids and more parents going there.
Yeah, it's a busy area, isn't it? It really is. The third question, sorry, is from Eliza Chowdhury. I feel like there is not an alternative to this. I presume she you know, is talking about the crossing point outside the school. Eliza, you may wish to elaborate on that a little bit if that's not the case.
No,
okay.
I was just referring to the crossing, the island that you were saying outside of Francis,
Yeah.
on Francis Road. That's what I felt like there was
Okay.
perhaps no alternatives, but
Yeah.
it might be worth exploring if there is another alternative. But being on Richmond Road might be the solution. Because I can understand what Carol and Jutta was saying, that it's just going to create more chaos. And you might be wanting to slow traffic down and increase safety, but if it's going to be chaotic, are we actually achieving that? I don't think we would be.
Yeah.
It's just creating a different sort of chaos.
And this is what exactly this meeting is about, isn't it? It's really gathering your views as well, and obviously helping us align well, put a viable scheme forward that's actually going to have everybody agreeing, and obviously and help us get the support for the scheme. So yeah, that's it. Yeah, so we'll consider that, councillor. We'll change the plan slightly if that's something that you.
that's fine. Well, this is what the meeting was about. So at least it's given us an opportunity to hear from the residents what they believe we can change, and they've given us reasons to think about as to why we should be looking at different alternatives.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely take on the Richmond Road idea. With the Wash Lane one, I'm happy. I believe that we've got enough support behind that from residents in Yardley to give that the green light.
Okay.
And the cycle rack, I don't know if anybody's got any thoughts on that or anything, or are we
all in agreement, or
I think from my perspective, I live closer to Wash Lane, and that is definitely something that's needed because I'm a driver and I drive down that road every day, and I've seen parents waiting to cross the road. So yeah, definitely 100% that would be useful, I feel. On the Beaton and Wash Lane, definitely. And the cycle racks,
it's an interesting take, and I think I don't think there'll be any harm in giving it a go, in my opinion. So
yeah, okay. So the other question, which was put to us by Simon, I think she's left now actually, and she asked the question: is the funding only for the highways and schools? Essentially, the Brum Breathes funding is available to anybody. And for community organizations, anybody that's looking to serve the interests of the community as to whatever scheme that may be, whatever shape or form that might come in. So yeah, it's not just for highways or schools. It's essentially for the community, and any organization in the community. Could be schools even, anybody. Okay, so the other question was put forward by Naira. She's asking if she's just clarifying that she was she had an issue with regards to her mic, but she just wants to know if she could have access to the planning of these islands. So there
once
would be
once we're at consultation stage, I'm sure I'll get a plan out to you so you can have a look at what we're looking to do, right? So we can do that. So I believe that we had a fourth scheme, but I believe we're not in a position to talk. We're scrapping that, are we? Because we've already got a cycle rack on.
Yeah. The other location wasn't really a viable location, and to be honest with you, with these proposals, you're pretty much exhausted the funding that you've got allocated. So I think we'd want to play safe. We don't want to overstretch ourselves. As I said, I'm pretty sure that with moving it, the first proposal, moving it to Richmond Road, Francis Road, that's going to probably chew up a little bit more money than what we originally proposed, Councillor. So
no problem, because that literally Project 4 will cover the cost of the first project now.
Well, don't forget, we've got to allocate money. We've got to set aside money for the commuted sum, which is the maintenance of any additional street furniture items, and that isn't necessarily cheap. So we need to look at those calculations as we go through that design process, and it may be that we have to water down the design slightly, which is obviously not ideal, but again, it's using the funding as to make sure that we can actually deliver a scheme and it be maintained thereafter. All right. And also obviously the fee that I have to charge, unfortunately, for these for the process.
So I think, are we in agreement with the three projects that we've put in front of you, with slight changes to the Richmond Road one, where we can look at Richmond Road junction with Francis Road to see if we'll move it up further up, and then I believe we'll have to have another meeting is to go put that idea past you. But I think we're happy with the other two though, with the cycle rack and wash lane. I think we can run with them too. And if Imran, you can put something together for the Richmond Road, and then we can look at that costing and see what we can actually do there.
I think we'd probably look at around about, I mean, as the sort of I'd say around about £12,500 to £14,000 in that region we'd be looking at.
Okay. So originally we had 12,000 earmarked for Francis Road.
Yeah. And
there was a few thousand for the fourth project, so I'm sure we can combine the two. And
well, as I said, we've got to allow for the commuted sum. As I said, I don't want to get overestimate, underestimate the cost of the schemes, because obviously when I come to do the maintenance calculations, I want to make sure that we've got the money set aside for those as well, and then obviously, allow for my fee as well. So that there is a certain amount of money that I'd say probably 30%, something like that, you know, of the 40k is going to be required for all of that potentially. So we just, you know, we might have actually gone over that. We might need to water down the design a little bit and maybe streamline it so we can think outside the box and possibly a little bit and try and reduce the maintenance figures as much as we can, and you know, make sure that we can get a viable scheme out.
Okay. Any other questions, or anybody would want to raise anything?
No.
Oh, my dinner now.
Yeah, it's 8 o'clock now, isn't it? So
That's fine.
yeah.
Okay, so I think Beverly's typing. Is she? Beverly, do you want to comment?
Having a dinner.
Oh, I wish. I was just saying thank you all. I was just typing that in, but it was quicker to just say thank you all than to type it in. But thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks,
okay.
Beverly. Thanks for organising it.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody that's attended, and we'll be in contact in the next few weeks, hopefully with some new drawings and how we want to proceed with this. And please, if there's any other concerns or anything, please, you all got my details. You're happy, more than happy for you to contact me. And I think we're happy to close this meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
But,
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye. Bye.